Martial law is declared. The government decides how you live. Armed soldiers enforce orders in the streets. Military checkpoints control who moves and who doesn't. Curfews control your life, and if you break those, you're in a world of trouble. Civil rights are suspended, the courts are closed, and military tribunals will now decide your fate. The rights you thought you had vanish overnight, replaced with the orders you have no choice but to follow. Now guys, no matter where you stand politically, what you're about to hear might actually shock you, or at the very least, it's gonna make you think. In this video, we're gonna be breaking down what martial law really is, the kind of power the government would actually have over us, how to recognize the early warning signs that it's coming down towards us, and most importantly, and what this channel is all about, how to prepare for it now before it's too late. My name's Will, and to me, preparedness isn't only about surviving the end of the world, it's about who we are and what we're made of. I prepare to live, and I live to prepare. I am a prepared citizen. Now, before we actually start preparing for martial law, we have to understand what it actually is, and I think this might mess with your head a little bit, but martial law is not clearly defined in our Constitution or in federal law. So there's no actual specific definition that tells us what martial law actually is. But we do have some examples of martial law being practiced in the United States. I think the most notorious example was in Hawaii just after the start of World War II, around 1941, and it lasted all the way to 1944. After Pearl Harbor, Hawaii was placed under full martial law. The military controlled all civilian life, censored the press, imposed curfews, and even held some military tribunals. Civilian courts were basically shut down until 1944. And then later on in Cambridge, Maryland, in 1963, I'm just checking my notes here, martial law was enacted during some civil rights protests. The National Guard was deployed, curfews were enacted, and civilian movement was tightly controlled. This was the last actual formal declaration of what we call martial law in our country. But what would martial law actually look like today? I mean, with our sophisticated technology, trust me, it's going to happen fast. The government can already track our phones. They can monitor us through, civilian security cameras. And let's not even talk about how screwed you're going to be if you're being tracked by a Reaper drone. Our bank accounts, our credit cards, they could all be deleted with a single keystroke. Social media and news platforms could be forced to only show us what the government wants us to see, and I mean, that's never happened to us before. COVID. Travel could be restricted almost instantaneously, and the National Guard and federal troops could lock down all ports, train stations, airports, whatever, in a blink of an eye. And I'm just gonna tell you guys this, that scares the shit out of me. Now, let's talk about some of the warning signs right now. And I need to be very clear. What I'm about to say is probably going to upset some of my viewers. And honest to God, this is not my intention. But the current presidential administration sending out ICE to deal with illegal immigrants and using the National Guard to help struggling states who are overrun by crime is not martial law. It's not even close. Martial law is something completely different. So what are the warning signs that we should actually be paying attention to? And one of the biggest, and I think one of the most likely, is going to be some type of civil unrest that spreads across multiple cities or states, getting to the point where police can't keep up and there's no other police to send to help those police. We've seen police overwhelmed in certain places. California, Washington State, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and all of those places have super high crime rates, and they all have one thing in common. I wonder what that is. Another possible warning sign is the government overstretching its so-called emergency powers past what we would feel would be a reasonable time. Something that's been declared temporary but keeps getting renewed over and over and over again. Achoo, COVID!
I should be prosecuted.
Don't worry, we're going to be talking about COVID in just a minute. I personally think that we'd be seeing National Guard deployed in small rural areas. Yes, we have them in the cities right now. They're doing a specific job. But like I said before, that's for a completely different reason. But if you live in a small town like I do, and the National Guard is landing Blackhawks and moving tanks and troops into your local rec field, yeah, something is definitely coming down the pipeline. Another thing would be the government taking control of our supply lines, rationing food, water, fuel, even medicine. That would actually be an extremely, big red flag for me. But actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we can actually predict any of this at all. I mean, if it happens, it's going to happen fast. I mean, most likely we're going to go to bed one night and we're going to wake up the next morning and realize that the shit has hit the fan. I don't know, maybe I'm just being silly. Hey, here's some bonus content. I get a lot of comments going, what am I looking at? What am I looking at when I look up here or when I look down here? Well, I'm looking at myself. And there's you right there. You're in there and you're looking at me. But I need to see what I look like. And sometimes I put it down here. Yeah, I got to know what I look like because I'm handsome. All right, heathens, I got my notes stapled to the tripod here, so we're not going to screw this up. How do we actually prepare for martial law? If martial law is declared, our rights aren't going to mean spit. So we can't be out in the streets causing a ruckus and screaming at soldiers. They're going to do their job. They've been ordered to do a job, and they're going to do it. We need to enact our gray man principles and philosophies. We need to stay very under the radar. We need to be very well hidden in case they come a-looking for us. You don't want to be giving these soldiers any reason whatsoever to zero in on you and think of you as either a threat or a target. We're all prepared citizens, right? So we've already got our food, we've got our fuel, we've got our medicine, it's stored, it's ready to go, and it's going to be incredibly important to us when those supply chains shut down. One of the reasons I love doing this channel is because I know most of you watching this have massive pallets of beans, peas, and MREs just ready to go and ready to eat. One of the other things that I think gets overlooked a lot is having a good supply of silver and some cash on hand. But more importantly than that, I think bartering items are going to be more important because, again, like I said, the banks are probably going to be closed. The food, the grocery stores, they're going to be all shut down. And if we take a look back into our own world history, in World War II, what did the Nazis do? They took the Jews, they put them in the ghettos, they took everything from them. So the only way that those Jews could survive was by bartering, was by having something of value that they could trade for food or clothing or passports or escape routes or anything like that. So bartering items are going to become so important. Speaking of the government, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's actually a huge Black Hawk flying overhead right now. Damn it, they found me! Just kidding. Now, there's not going to be a really good way to contact other members of our group. Communications are going to be extremely crucial for us. You're going to want to make sure that all of your radios are charged and ready to go, and have a plan on how your family is actually going to communicate. But I need all of you to remember this, that keying a mic in one of these situations, it could also be a death sentence. So not only do you need to have your radios, but you need to know how to use them. You need to know how radio signals can be triangulated before you even think about buying a radio, turning it on, and talking to your buddies. Now, I understand that a large majority of you have a pretty decent supply of firearms and ammunition, but what I have noticed a lot lately, and it's just my training and experience that tells me that the average person does not have any training at all on how to use those tools. Yes, you might be able to fend off a bunch of marauders or untrained people, but are you really going to be able to fight off the entire might of the United States military? Unless, of course, you're being targeted by one of those 92Gs or maybe even a 92S. But I would definitely be extremely concerned about those 5211s. They got a lot of pent-up rage. You know, one thing that I've never really seen before down in the comment section is somebody actually admitting and saying, you know what, Will, you're right. I have a lot of guns, but I don't even remotely know how to use one in a combat situation. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. We all need more training in the proper use of firearms. Because trust me when I tell you, folks, you are not going to learn how to survive a gunfight by sitting there watching YouTube. Okay, finally, friends, we got to talk about something, and that is mobility. Man, this is corny. Why am I doing this? The ability to get up and move and be mobile might be the difference between life and death. And that means storing fuel, potentially having a vehicle that could so-called fly under the radar. We need to have our BOBs ready to go, tons of alternate routes, and a good plan. I think a plan is the biggest part of bugging out, and you need to rehearse this plan. The only way that we learn is by repetition. Every member of your group should be practicing getting the hell out of Dodge at a moment's notice. So if you guys don't want to go out and do all that firearm training that I keep talking about, at least do yourself a favor and practice your escape plans, because you will not have any time to escape once martial law is enacted. Now let's face it, martial law isn't some kind of scenario played out in a Hollywood storyline. We have seen it in the United States, and we have seen horrible examples of what the government does to its people in other countries. Look at what our own government did to us during COVID. I've got my notes right here, and I'm not trying to be political or be a jerk, but these are the facts. 31 out of 34 Democrat-controlled states had the most severe lockdown protocols, while 6 out of 16 Republican-controlled states had some severe lockdowns. I just want you guys to have all the information you possibly can have. Do you remember 2 weeks to slow the spread? Yeah, that lasted almost 4 years. This was the most brutal time for not only myself, but a lot of my friends. It was the first time in my life that a state and federal government told me where I can go, what I can do, and who I can hang out with. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans fell for it, and they believed it, and they thought that these so-called mandates were law, and we now know it wasn't law. It was just a suggestion. And those so-called guidelines were written by people who aren't even our elected officials. It blows my friggin' mind. The COVID hysteria should prove to all of us that the government can control the population through fear. And yes, there were a lot of us that refused those so-called mandates. I'll never forget watching the National Guard walking down the streets of Milwaukee or Minnesota, wherever Tim Walz is from, and they were shooting people with pepper balls while they were standing on their front porches because they were going against the mandate.
Get inside! Get in your house now! Let's go! Light him up! Go inside now! Get in the house!
I have never been more angry at what the United States put us all through, and I swear to God, I will never forget it. I don't like ending my videos on kind of this doom and gloom thing, but that being said, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like and comment. I have been asked many times now, am I moderating the comments? And the answer is no. I do not edit or delete any comments that you guys leave, but I do see a lot of them ending up in the potentially harmful folder. So when you do comment, make sure you're very careful about your wording so that the rest of us can hear what you have to say. Your opinion and your voice is extremely important to me. Don't forget, our preparedness hunting series starts next week. My name's Will. I'm the Prepared Citizen. The best time to prepare was yesterday. The second best time is today.